Well, good evening, everybody. So I have the honor to introduce Murbo employee, community conservation educator Tessa Poolman. She's based out of Kansas City. She's been with us for a little while so far, and she works out of the Need to Be Gorman Discovery Center, delivering community conservation and education programs focused in that geography primarily, but she does get out of there every now and then. We've been super pleased to have her, and I hope you enjoy her presentation tonight. So, without further ado, I guess we can hand it over to her.
Thank you so much, Ethan. What kind words. I was hoping you didn't get too sappy because I didn't want to tear up and cry. So thank you. Well, hello and welcome everybody. I will give you a little bit of a background. This is my first time doing a webinar, so it's a little different for me to be talking into my computer screen and not see everyone's faces. So we'll work with it. We'll go right along, but like Dana said, I'll be accepting questions throughout just because we'll be discussing a little bit of like how-tos and instruction. So if you have any questions, if you're working along with us, feel free to put those in their chat and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. But we're going to be talking about citizen or community science today. But before, I will give you a little bit of an introduction to myself. So my name is Tessa Poolman. I grew up in Kansas City. I was born and raised there. And then I graduated high school and I went down to Southeast Kansas, where I studied biology and have an emphasis in wildlife ecology and conservation. I absolutely loved my time at Pitt State University. I got so much experience in the field, which I am eternally grateful for. A lot of the pictures that you're seeing are through a lot of classwork and lab exercises. While I was at school, I worked for the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks as a part-time naturalist for the Southeast Kansas Nature Center in a really, really unique geography in Kansas. If you ever have time to make it down to Galena, I would highly recommend it. And then, like Ethan said, I've been with Murbo for a while now, since August of 2023 to be exact. And I'm absolutely loving it. I love my job so much. I'm so, so fortunate. I couldn't have asked for a better position. So, all right. So, community science. Some of you may know or be familiar with community science already, and there may be some of you who have not and have never heard of it. And that's okay because this is designed for both. Um, but a community scientist is an individual who voluntarily contributes their time, effort, and resources towards scientific research. And it's done in collaboration with professional scientists and biologists. And it helps us facilitate research on a bigger scale by adding additional people, which that's you, that's the community. Um, it was previously referred to as citizen science, and sometimes in most cases it still is, but it's kind of making its way towards community science. So either of those, look out. But the best part about it is that it gives you an opportunity to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. Um, you're contributing to data that is so, so important and that is used on so many different levels and all around the world, which I think is really, really cool. One thing that I also love about community science is that it gives us an opportunity to connect with nature on another level other than, just spending time outside in it. Not that that's not a valid way to spend time in nature. It absolutely is, but it kind of gives us the opportunity to learn more about where we are, what's around us, from a big, big park to a big trail or a national park to a city park in your backyard, or maybe even just like a flower box on your balcony, you know? So, here is a couple of community science projects. And I know it looks like more than a couple, but there are so many more out there. Um, there's different projects all across the globe. So most of these are definitely going on in North America. Some of them are worldwide as well, and then some of them are specific to certain geographies and locations. You might see some things here that you're familiar with, already using. There might be some on here that you haven't used or haven't seen before, like we've got Bumblebee Watch and we've got Journey North. There's also a roadkill one, which I think is super cool. I'm super into looking and checking out roadkill. I know that sounds kind of gross, but um, we've got Project Feeder Watch, Midwest Invasive Species Information Network, Frog Watch. So anything from a big mammal and roadkill to water quality and insects, birds, plants, all of the above, it all counts. And even what some people don't know or haven't experienced with community science is using it to track stars and cosmos and comets and all that stuff. So Zoneverse is this blue one right here, and then Globe at Night is another great one. I'll talk about some other websites that you can explore to look for other community science projects at the end, so be on the lookout for those. But feel free to screenshot or take a picture with your phone of the slides just in case you need the information to go back. And then, of course, the webinar is being recorded as well. Okay, we're gonna start with iNaturalist. So if you're not familiar with iNaturalist or you haven't used iNaturalist before, I would definitely recommend that you take out your smartphone if you have one, or take notes, maybe navigate to the iNaturalist webpage and you can work along with us. Or again, you can go back and watch the recording and do it another time, but we're gonna cover iNaturalist for a little bit. So iNaturalist is a really, really, really great resource. My first interaction with iNaturalist, I will never ever forget. I was in my Principles of Ecology class, and my professor, he like comes in to the lecture hall and he logs onto his computer and he like pulls up this website, and it's iNaturalist, and he pulls up this picture of like a snake, and it's kind of a weird picture. Like the lighting's not super great. And he was like, "What do you guys think this is?" And he does this like classic like thinking face, and he does it all the time. And I love it. And like he just kind of opened it and let it sit there and was like, "Well, I think it's this, but this guy thinks it's that." And he was an approved expert to ID people's observations, and so he was trying to figure it out and trying to give the person who observed it and posted it a positive ID. And it was such a great way to engage the class and just like kind of get our brains moving and working. And although it wasn't herpetology and I wasn't quite there on the level of identifying snakes yet, it made me want to go and do it. It made me want to go and take pictures of things and post them and find out what they were, and engage with experts and see what other people are finding. So again, iNaturalist has a really special place in my heart, and I highly, highly recommend it if you're not using it yet. But what you're seeing is just a glimpse of what it is, what it does, what you can do. Run a BioBlitz is a really nice function of iNaturalist. And then also crowdsourcing identification. So that's a really unique part of iNaturalist, is that it's okay to observe things you don't know, and things you can't positively ID down to species, because somebody's going to come and review it and hopefully be able to confirm it for you and maybe give you some suggestions. I've had somebody, like ask me to be sure to take pictures of the bellies of toads when I'm in a certain region. So this is just basically how iNaturalist works. You record an observation, you post it, and you check back to see if somebody has ID'd it and or given you like the okay on your ID. But we're going to talk a little bit about an observation. So, what are observations? Observations are records of an encounter with an individual organism at a particular time and at a certain location. So, part of a good observation that will be quality for scientific research, we need to know the who. So, in terms of iNaturalist, this means creating an account, right? And the who is important because that's also should be who is making the observation. So it's really important that you only post your own personal observations to iNaturalist versus somebody else's or other pictures you may find. The what. We need to know what you're seeing. And again, like I said, the greatest part about iNaturalist is that if you don't know exactly what it is, that's kind of what it's there for. So you can do your best to make a guess, and iNaturalist also will give you some suggestions based on the photo that you use or the recording that you use. Um, the where. The where is also really important. Where did you observe the organism that you're seeing? Um, iNaturalist, usually, at least for me, it will automatically input my location based on the picture. It just gathers that information from your phone or wherever you are. But if you're making observations online, you will need to pay attention to your coordinates. So when you make an observation, usually your phone will tag it and you can see the location through whatever device you took your phone on. If you're using a commercial camera or a professional camera, be sure to drop a pin on a GPS or on your phone maps so that you can post where you saw it. You also have the option to turn off your location if you don't want the location to be publicly viewed, because most of the observations that go public, you can see exactly where they were. When, so this is really important too if you're taking photos, making observations, and then planning on posting them to iNaturalist later. You want to be sure that you are um, entering the date of when you made your observation, not the date of when you actually post it to iNaturalist. And then your evidence, of course, right? So that's a good photo, maybe a recording or a video, depending on what organism you're observing. But the more photos, the better. You have the option to post a couple and, try to get some different angles, good lighting. The photo really depends on the ID, right? We can't be in person to see it, so make sure that you're keeping those things in mind when you're taking pictures of things to post. Okay, so this is the nitty-gritty of how to make observations using iNaturalist. These are for our iPhones and Androids. If you're using iNaturalist on a desktop or a laptop, through their website, you will be able to still make observations. It just looks a little bit different than this, but it's ultimately the same process. So you'll notice on the iPhone, this bar will be down at the bottom of your screen or your app, and you'll want to hit the observe button. And then you'll have the option to either take a photo or upload a photo. And then you will choose what you saw. And this is where, if you're not quite sure what you're seeing, you can click on this and it will give you some suggestions as a placeholder until somebody can come back and ID it. There's a little section for notes as well. So, if you recorded other observations, such as like maybe the temperature, or the wind speed, or maybe like a couple notes about what else was around you or what else was around the organism that you're observing, that's a great place to add. The more information, the better. Okay, so and then when you saw it, which should be automatically entered based on your photo. If not, you can double check to be sure or enter it manually. Where you saw it, same thing. But again, that goes into like the privacy settings in your app, which will pop up as soon as you download it. And you can select to either allow the privacy settings, which will get you set up to have it automatically entered, or you can choose to not allow them, and then you'll just have to enter it manually. You'll want to be sure to save your observations so that it doesn't disappear, right? All of the work you just went through to make it. And then you'll have the option to upload. So saving and upload are different, and uploading can take a little bit of time. You'll want to make sure that you go back into the app to be sure that it completely uploaded. Otherwise, sometimes like I get stuck and mine will pause and not upload if I don't have the app running in the background. So I always go be sure to check that everything got uploaded completely, nothing is waiting, etc. So, and then you go back and check for activity to see if somebody's ID'd it, see if somebody maybe disagrees with what you think you saw or has some other suggestions. Maybe you found something really cool, maybe something unique or rare. Okay, and then with an Android, you can see that it's a little bit different. You've got this plus button right here. And so you'll click that to start making your observation. But then ultimately, all of the other things, the what, who, what, when, and where will be the same. So, and then instead of an upload button, it's a little sync button. Okay, one of the great things about iNaturalist is that it has the option to create projects. So if you're familiar um, or ever used a project before, then you already got a little bit of an idea of the purpose of projects, but you can also always start your own project. You know, maybe there's something in particular that you're looking for, want to find out where it is, how widespread an organism is. This is a great option for that. Otherwise, you can try to direct your observations for something in particular and explore some projects that are nearby to you. So, for all of my Kansas City people on, you'll notice that these are mostly Kansas City-based projects. That's because this is a screenshot from my iNaturalist account. So if you slide over to the Nearby tab under Projects, some things will pop up that's nearby. So we have like the Kansas City Pollinator Project, and when there was a BioBlitz at Parkville Nature Sanctuary, some of these will be open to join. And then other ones you will have to be approved to join. So like Bird Strikes KC, this one is not open to join. You do have to get approved for it. And then for some projects, when you make an observation, they will automatically upload to them whether you've selected the projects or not. And then there's other projects where you'll want to be sure that when you go to make an observation, you click on this projects tab and select the project you want to upload your observation to. Okay, so the Explore tab on iNaturalist. This is my favorite to use if I'm traveling or going somewhere new, or even I'm looking for something in particular, maybe a specific bird species or wildflower species. I'll utilize this Explore tab to see if somebody else has made an observation prior. So this map, we're right over Arrow Rock, the state historic site where our Murbo headquarters is, and you can see all of the observations that have been made, which I'm sure Dana and Ethan may have contributed a couple to these. So thank you guys. You can choose to view it in the map format, and these are all coded by the different organisms. So don't ask me what the colors are in particular because I'm not exactly sure. Um, but this is a nice way to view it if you are looking at like the bigger scheme of things, and like maybe you want to go to a hot spot where there's a lot of observations already, or maybe somewhere where there's not a ton of observations. And then you have the option to view it as a grid or a list format as well. So this one over here is on the grid format. So you're seeing pictures of observations that were made by somebody. Oh boy. Um, and then if you choose the list format, it still shows you a little picture icon, but then it shows you the full ID name of what it is and where it's at. So I highly recommend using the Explore tab, even if you're just curious. Maybe you're a little bit bored to see if there's other iNaturalist observations around you or your neighborhood. It's a great, great option for the app. Okay, activity. Here's another one. So next to the Explore tab, we've got activity. And you'll see over here, we're under news. So if you click on the news tab, they've got a couple articles, blog posts that you can check out. This one in particular is really, really cool. Just this week, iNaturalist achieved a significant milestone, 3 million observers, which is amazing. That's super, super cool. And April is Community Science Month, so how fitting for that. Definitely explore these, if you are on a road trip or just looking to learn more about any and all organisms. I highly recommend viewing what they've got under the news tabs. And then my content, which this is where you can see what people are saying about your observations. So we've got, this is mine, of course, and you can see people are confirming or suggesting an ID, making some comments. Very, very helpful. It's a nice way to go back and see exactly what people are saying on your observations. Just a really quick how-to to get there. Okay, so next we're going to transition into Seek, which is another app that is by iNaturalist.
Hey, Tessa,
Yes.
quick
No, you're
interruption
good.
because just
Yes.
about iNaturalist.
Love it.
It seems like possibly the question was answered, but there were a couple people that were asking about if they were observing rare species and things of that nature, like there ways to obscure a location or not share your location, that is possible, correct?
If you are observing rare species specifically.
And well, I don't know. I mean, I think just if you want to keep your location private for whatever reason, that was one of the reasons asked, but maybe it's your house or something and you don't want it on there, but just keeping locations private instead of sharing it out.
Yes, definitely an option. Absolutely. When you go to make an observation and on that Where tab, you can click on it and choose to obscure it from public view.
It's under geo
Thanks.
privacy, and you can do obscured or not showing it at all, I guess. And then also to answer your question that you had on the map key, the colors indicate whether they're insects or they're invertebrates or vertebrates or fungi or whatever they are. And there's also a slight thing to the symbol that helps you determine whether they have achieved a research grade. Um, but yeah, we were just trying to look at the questions for you. And there's another question about what the Roadkill app was called. And I think there's a couple Roadkill apps out there, and I just started looking into that. So
Yes. So I can go back to that slide. It is this one right here. And I believe it's called, I think Roadkill is in the name of it.
Okay, I think we did find that one. We're
yep,
trying to be helpful and put stuff in the
yep,
chat. But that
Project
helps.
Roadkill.
That symbol helps a lot, so we can
yep.
get that
It's
in the chat.
roadkill.at, I believe. Roadkill.at.
Yes, that's
We'll put
the
it in
web
the chat.
address. Yes.
Thank
Um,
you.
absolutely. Any other ones at the moment?
We can answer the couple that are in there probably online while you present.
Okay. So I'm good to keep going.
Yep, yep, yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're on to Seek. So Seek is a really, really great option. If you're not really ready to commit to making an account, you can use Seek without having an iNaturalist account, also without being connected to Wi-Fi or cellular data. And it's really just a great way to get familiar with your surroundings and what sort of organisms are near you, around you. It's really there for IDing. You can connect it to your iNaturalist account so that you can still make observations while using Seek and import them into iNaturalist, but that is absolutely not required. I Seek is also great for using with kids, for the young ones. If you're not ready for them to have their own account or they're not old enough to have their own account, this is an app that is safe for them to use because again, you are not required to give any personal information or commit to making that account. So using Seek, it pops up this camera right here, and each of these dots stand for something specific. So the first one is the kingdom, the phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And usually I have success with getting Seek to identify all the way down to species. Sometimes it won't or it can't, and that is just depending on maybe it's missing something, like if it's a plant, maybe it's missing a leaf, or there's some other plants in the view of the camera, and so it's not super confident. Um, but there's a lot of great resources on Seek's website. There's a PDF user guide that you can download to really work through all of the specifics. It gives really good tips on how to take the best pictures for it. One thing I also love about Seek is that you can earn badges and do these challenges. So it's another way to get a little bit interactive, give you some motivation, just like an extra incentive to get out in nature and make some observations. Okay, so this is Seek and iNaturalist side by side, right? Versus comparing the two. So, again, kid safe, not required to create an account. You can still ID even if you don't have internet. No personally identifiable information is collected. And then iNaturalist, best used to connect with others and share your data. You do have to be 13 years or older to create an account. And then again, provides initial suggestions, but utilizes the community and experts to confirm your observations, contributes to biodiversity data, um, and then the photo, location, time are recorded with iNaturalist. And I'll just leave this for a second for anybody to take a photo of it or take a screenshot if you want. I like this comparison. It makes it really easy for me to answer and to make a decision of like what app I'm going to use after you looking at this. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to using eBird. So hopefully there are a couple people on here who are familiar with eBird. If not, even better, you're going to get a little bit of an introduction. And then for those of you who are familiar with eBird, I'm going to talk about some of the other cool attributes that eBird has to offer and some other ways that you can use it other than just sharing our birding list, which is great too, if that's all you want to do. So eBird is a wonderful, wonderful community science app. It provides you a space to record and make lists of birds that you're seeing. You can even make like a wish list or a life list. And then it is the same sort of idea as iNaturalist, but birds specifically. So we're crowdsourcing information from all over the world. People are making checklists all of the time. And it's through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which has a ton of community science projects themselves. And what's really nice about the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, if you've already used one of their projects or one of their applications and you have an account, that account will work for all of their other apps, projects, etc. So eBird is the same in that you can use it as a mobile like application, or you can use it via a website and enter your observations online if you don't have a smartphone or you prefer to use a desktop or laptop. This is a screen grab from their website. So that's what it kind of looks like when you go onto their online platform versus their mobile platform. I'm going to cover some of the basics of eBird, but I would highly, highly recommend taking the eBird Essentials course. It's online through their website and it's completely free. And they walk you through all of the ins and outs. You'll probably get even more detail than what I can give you. But it's definitely worth your time. Even if you've been using eBird for a while and you haven't taken it and you maybe have some extra free time or want to learn some more, I would definitely recommend that in that case as well.
Tessa,
Just yeah,
I just dropped a webinar. We did a deep dive into eBird and a couple years ago, and I posted that YouTube link. Mary Nemisek, she's been an eBird reviewer, and we did a good deep dive there too. So
thank you.
not I would check them all out, but that's a good one too.
Yes, always. Thank you so much, Ethan. That's a great resource. Okay, so when you get on eBird or you download the app, you either log into your account that you maybe already have, and if not, you create a new one. And then you will be prompted to set your preferences. So that's going to be like if you want them, allow them to track your location. I have mine to where it's set that it only tracks my location while I'm using the app. Um, I know that's an iPhone option. I'm not quite sure if Android has the same option or what it would look like. But if you go into your settings on your mobile device, I'm sure that you can explore the location tracking preferences. And then you'll also want to set a preference of whether or not you want things to appear as common names or scientific names. It defaults to common names. Um, so if you are good with common names, then you should be good there. And if not, it'll prompt you and ask you. And then you'll want to download and install some packs. So usually these are for your region. And then if you're traveling and going somewhere else, you can download and install packs for wherever else you're going or maybe traveling to. Once you've got your account set up and all of your preferences set, you can start a checklist. And so what that means is you just start making your birding list. Every time you see or hear, observe a bird, you can navigate to the species. There's an option to just search it and type it in, which makes it a lot easier than trying to scroll through all of the bird species alphabetically. And you can click on this little plus button here, and on the iPhone, it's a little bit more over here. So you click on that and it'll add. So let's say you see 3 northern cardinals, you would click it 3 times and it will record it. And then same with whatever other species you see. Sometimes there'll be a couple of species that may have a dot like this, a little code next to it, and that might mean that it's rare, or maybe isn't there yet, hasn't been seen familiar, and they'll ask you to provide some more evidence or some comments about the species, how you know that's exactly what it was, how you identified it, maybe what was around it, what is the habitat like, etc. So if you do catch a species that you think might be considered rare or uncommon, be sure to be thinking about those things. And then you'll want to select a location. eBird is kind of the same in that if you're allowing the app to track your location, it will pull it up for you automatically. If not, then you can type it in manually as well. And then you'll review your list. Be sure that all of what you've marked down and recorded are things that you positively were able to identify and see. And then you'll want to submit and hit share. There is an option to just close your list if you do not have Wi-Fi or you're not connected to internet and to go back and submit it later. Sometimes I use this option if I'm in a remote location and I know that I don't have great service or don't have service at all. I'll wait to submit it and I'll go back and submit it once I do get service so that my phone is not constantly running trying to submit it in the background. And then you will share it. So eBird is so much more than observations. It's a great tool to use if you're a birder or maybe a beginner birder or just interested in dabbling in birding itself. I use eBird a lot when I'm going to a new location similar to iNaturalist to see what people are observing, what kind of birds are in the area, what I can be on the lookout for, all of that good stuff. And it's great to utilize it in that sense. So eBird is also a great tool for education. You can use eBird as an educator if you're a teacher, formal or informal. It's a great way to engage students in not only biology and science, but also to be used for math or statistics or writing, all of those things. And they've got lots of resources on the eBird and the Cornell website for educators. Conservation, absolutely. So some observations have even been used to help inform safeguard policies for birds. So all of those sightings that you're making, they're contributing to something that's bigger than yourself. And then research, like this was something that they put out recently in 2022, eBird reported that they had updated abundance and species maps for over 2,000 species. And the house wren is just one example that they gave, which is amazing. Not only is that hitting on research, but also conservation. Okay, so you might be thinking, I cannot do an eBird list quite yet because I'm not sure what birds I'm seeing or observing. And that is totally okay because guess what? Cornell has an app for that. So this is the Merlin Bird ID app. I love this app. I always have it in my back pocket. No pun intended. Um, and it is great if you're new to the world of birding, or maybe you are really good at IDing birds by sight, but you're working on sound. It's perfect for all of the above. So they have this really nice option where it kind of walks you through a couple steps of like, what size was the bird? What were some of the colors? What was the bird doing? And all of that helps to kind of narrow it down to what you might be seeing. I personally use the song or sound ID function most often. And a lot of times I will just sit outside and record it, whether I know the songs or not. It's fun to look at the spectrographs and look at what notes they're making and how high they're trilling and all of those things. But what's neat about Merlin is that it's kind of similar as like Seek is to iNaturalist, in that when you're making an observation, or you're doing these recordings and it's identifying the song, you can export those from the Merlin Bird ID app right over to eBird and do a checklist that way. So definitely recommend using Merlin if you want to get a little bit more familiar with identifying birds. You also could use a traditional field guide. That's another great resource and a great way to practice your bird IDing skills. And then there's a couple other apps too, but I think Merlin takes the top when it comes to sound ID. Sorry, I was trying to say song and sound at the same time. Okay, so like I mentioned before, that login with Cornell is going to help you access all of their other projects and applications and websites. So here are most of them. There's a couple that are left off, but this is Nest Watch. This is what the app looks like when you go to download it on the Google Play Store or the App Store. And then Celebrate Urban Birds, they do not have an app for. This is just something that you input through their website, the Celebrate Urban Birds website. But again, same login as Cornell. Project Feeder Watch, we just wrapped at the Discovery Center, so be on the lookout for participating in Project Feeder Watch next fall. You can do it at home or you can do it at a nature center. If you have bluebird boxes or kestrel boxes or wren boxes, any sort of nesting box, you can create or use your already made Cornell Lab account to monitor and contribute your data on Nest Watch, the Great Backyard Bird Count. We've already passed it for this year, but another great way to just like be interactive, pay more attention, have fun outside. Again, Merlin Bird ID, Bird Academy. This is a great way if you want to spend some time yourself or with the young ones learning about IDing birds and songs. There's lots of great resources, little quizzes and games on there. So we talked a lot about what community science is, how some of the ways that you can participate in it yourself. And then I also want to highlight some of the impacts or the community science wins that are happening. So, this little guy right here on your far left, is a new family of moth that was discovered by a citizen scientist in South Australia. It was discovered in 2015. It was technically rediscovered because it was a very primitive moth that scientists believed to be extinct. And it was discovered among native pine trees on Kangaroo Island. So I think that is really cool. And then the next one is a western red cicada, which again was thought to be extinct. And then it was observed in California by this iNaturalist user and helped scientists um, confirm the rediscovery of it, basically. And so that's really cool, I think. They were able to see that location and see that observation and know that they are still out there. I actually went to the original post of it, and it was really interesting to see the scientists communicating and making comments with the person who observed it. They were like, this is really important, you have no idea. And so I can't imagine how cool that guy must have felt. I know I would be over the moon if I came to find out that I discovered a species that was thought to be extinct. And then we've got this one over here. So in 2017, there was some citizen scientists who were using one of NASA's Kepler space telescopes and made a discovery of at least 5 exoplanets and possibly a sixth. I haven't found out any information about the sixth one, but they named it K2138. And I know Ethan is really into the community science universe realm, if you will, and he has been doing some exoplanet searching of his own, and I'm sure he would love to tell you more about that if he ever has some time. But it is really interesting. When I first got introduced to community science, I didn't even think to observe things like the stars or the planets or the cosmos. But it's definitely something that is highly, highly explored, and I would highly recommend learning more about it if you're even just a little bit interested. So we covered a couple of things, and you saw that slide at the beginning with some of the other applications, but there is always, always more. I would definitely recommend visiting the SciStarter website. They've got a ton of projects on there. They teach you where to go or how to contribute to them. They'll connect you to the website or the app and give you a brief summary of what the project's about, what it is. Citizenscience.gov is very, very similar. This one is another great resource to just peruse multiple projects or even to collect data from projects. You know, if you're interested in maybe doing some sort of study or you're looking for specific data, I would highly recommend checking out this website. And then we've got all of these other applications that you can check out as well. I like the Audubon app to as a field guide app. They also have a community science option where you can record your observations. But I primarily record my bird observations through eBird, and then I use the Audubon app to study sounds and look over ID info such as range maps and stuff like that. PlantNet, PlantSnap, those are good ones if you're interested more in particularly plants. And then, of course, we've got Seek and Peterson Field Guide, Monarchs SOS. I haven't actually done the Monarch Community Science apps, but I've heard great things about them. And we definitely need that data. That is super important as well. Thank you all so much for welcoming me for the April webinar series and trusting me to represent the Missouri River Bird Observatory. I hope I exceeded your expectations. I will insert my little plug for the City Nature Challenge. I know Susie has possibly already inserted in the chat, but we'll be doing participating in the City Nature Challenge for the greater Kansas City metro area, April 26th and 27th. So if you are in that area or want to come up for that weekend, I would definitely recommend it. The Discovery Center has something going on. Heartland Conservation Alliance has something going on. It's also Birds, Bees, and Blooms weekend. I know. But on the Kansas City side, we will be collecting data and making observations. So definitely come and find us. And then I will take any questions. And here's my contact information as well. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or maybe you try a couple here in a couple days or down the road. I would be happy to help you as best as I can. But thanks, guys.
That was great, Tessa. That was great. Um,
Tessa, I got a comment that I think you give us too much credit. All of those iNaturalist entries in Arrow Rock.
We're not you.
Not, I mean, maybe a
I did quite a
couple,
few.
but
I did a few.
yeah, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of iNat, I think. So let's see.
Um,
Sorry, go ahead.
before we jump into questions here, I'll just do a real quick shout out for our co-sponsor here of this April webinar series, the Missouri Birding Society. You can go to mobirds.org and they've got so much great content in there. They also have a great listserv for everything related to Missouri birds and then a little bit more. All sorts of information about Missouri birds and their Rare Bird Records Committee, birder resources. Also, you can see right on their website like recent unusual sightings from eBird. So they've been a great co-sponsor and supporter and partner for Mervo for a long time, and I suggest checking them out and thank them.
Tessa, you were right that Susie did put the information about the City Nature Challenge in, but I'm just putting it in again so it remains current in the chat. And Janet, thank you so much. Janet is our state avian ecologist. I hope that I have that right, Janet. She's with the Missouri Department of Conservation, and she coordinates the North American Breeding Bird Survey for the state of Missouri. And she reminds folks that volunteers are needed for that. And that is an incredibly cool community science project. That has been going on for many decades and provides a ton of excellent, important background information on bird populations. So.
Yes, yes. Breeding Bird Survey is one of my favorites too.
Let's see. So I think we got to the roadkill app. It was funny, T, you were like, that might be kind of gross and weird. But then a lot of people were like, what is that? Um, Kyla would like to know what type of bird are you holding in the picture that you had?
It's a Swainson's thrush. Yes, we did a banding exercise for wildlife management. My professor has a banding permit, and so I was just about to let it go in that picture. That's why I'm holding it like this and not by its legs. I'm not squeezing it.
Lanny notes for younger children, check out Journey North. Great input, Lanny. Thank you for that. And since you're up there in the Q&A, I will mention that Lanny is speaking to us next week as part of this series, speaking about how birds have changed his life. And I know that Lanny too will encourage people to share their experiences as well while we're here. So let's see. Joe asks, how do I sign up for May series? We actually don't have a May series scheduled, Joe. Thank you for asking though. I appreciate that. Um, we're going through April. So we have Tessa and then Lanny and then Greg Olson, who's the Missouri historian. So that's this Monday, next Monday, and then Greg's the 22nd. We are trying to reschedule Jen Rader, who was going to speak to us last week, but there was devastating weather throughout Southeast Kansas and Southwest Missouri, and her internet was kaput, as it turned out. So when we reschedule Jen, we will definitely be emailing everyone that registered for this whole April series and letting you know when we're rescheduling. So
I noticed that Tessa invited me to jump in and talk about and answer questions anybody has about kind of the citizen
danger,
science
danger.
when you're looking into outer space and looking at exoplanet transits and that kind of thing. Just stay tuned for more from Merbo on that. And in the meantime, if you were had your interest piqued by the eclipse, I would look into your local astronomy groups and see what kind of things they have going on. Check out Dark Sky International, Dark Sky International. Most of our work will be kind of focused around education around dark skies. So just stay tuned for more about that as well. And there's Lights Out Heartland and our local chapters of Dark Sky International as well.
Valerie asked if you could put up the screen again that had all the sites on it.
Yes, absolutely.
And JL mentions in the chat, thanks for the info on Nest Watch. Didn't know that was a thing. Nest Watch is really fun. I'm glad that you and hopefully other folks were turned on to that this evening.
Was this the one we are looking for or the one at the end with the websites? Just to be sure. The sites.
Let's see if that one is fine, says Valerie. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interactions in the Q&A and chat, y'all.
Yes. Yes, and thank you so much for all of the love. You all made me feel really good and warm. So I super appreciate all of those comments. I take them to heart and they mean a lot to me.
That means you'll be doing a lot more Zooms,
Yes,
teaching people all over the state
of
It's
course.
fine.
and
The,
beyond.
Valerie says that one was fine.
Mhm.
And also, we'll be doing a follow-up email for those that were in attendance with lots of resources for these.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I also have to give a shout out to Susie because um she gave a community science program about Project Feeder Watch with me. We did one together, and I used a lot of her ideas from her presentation to help me with mine. So, and we've been doing a lot of bird stuff at the Discovery Center as well. We've got an owl program coming up this Saturday. So be sure to check out the information for that if you're in the Kansas City area.
Tessa, you remind me really quick before we end here. I'm going to put our upcoming events into the chat, because there's, yeah, your program this Saturday, there's Nature Challenge, there's Birds and Bees and Arrow Rock that you mentioned, there's all kinds of things. And I think you and Susie seem to be doing like at least a program a month at the Discovery Center. Like there's all kinds of things going on, both online and in person, everyone. So there is our new website with its calendar on it. So please join us for things. I think that's it.
That was
So
great, Tessa.
yeah,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thanks
That
T,
was
and thanks everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll see y'all next week.